Hello, everyone, and welcome along to the latest edition of Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, the tennis podcast brought to you in association with Bet Rivers, your hometown sportsbook. We're looking ahead now to the matches on the ATP Tour. And I'd say I'm Nigel Seeley, and with me to look ahead to those matches is our senior ATP Tour handicapper. It's Sean Calvert. Sean, the last time we spoke, I felt really bad. I watched the video back and it was one of the worst performances. I would have been subbed at half time if I was a football player. I was all over the place. My dog wasn't very well and it was really getting to me a little bit. How are you?
I'm all right. I've just spent the last 10 minutes sneezing. I think I must have about a hay fever or something. I don't know what's going on there, but my problems are trifling, really, compared to yours. You know, dog's a massive part of the family, isn't it?
Oh, she's here. She's sitting next to me. Come here, mate. Come here. Here we go. We get her on just so she's all right. Here she is. There she is.
There you go. Look at that.
She's still blinking a little bit. And this little eye here.
She ran into a twig or something. You said
this little eye here ran into a twig, and when we were recording, Paula brought her in, and she had all pus coming out of her eye and all this kind of stuff. So
you can't concentrate when that's going on.
Yeah, we had an emergency vet. I could hear her crying downstairs. She never cries, this dog. She never ever cries. And there she was crying. I actually love this dog more than I do the kids. That's the truth. So
you better hope they're not watching this podcast.
Oh, no. My daughter would not be worried about our ATP Tour picks. I said, we're not massive on Instagram yet, sure. We've only got 200 followers. When we get 20,000 followers and we mix it with the hobnobs all around the world, then she'll be interested. But at the moment, she's not bothered. But she's on the mend. Here she is, and she's happy. You're right, babe. There she is. So their little eyes a little bit better. All right, you get down.
Difficult to set. I can't really tell from there, but you know the photo that you sent me when she did it, yeah, it looked pretty bad, didn't it? So it's a worry, isn't it?
Yeah. And she had these little dogs have these sort of bulbous eyes, don't they? So they cause problems when they run into things and they're big grit and stuff like that. But so that was a reason for my poor performance. So everyone's got an excuse. My poor performance last week was because of that performance. But she's on the mend now, so we're going to have an absolute storm.
Unfortunately,
we're going to have a stormer of a show today. I know that. I can feel it in my bones. Things are looking good. The weather's sunny outside. That's brilliant as well.
It is here, but not everywhere. As we're about to see.
Well, you stole my lines.
Sorry.
Anyway, the weather. I'll go back to what I was going to say. The weather is fantastic and the sun is shining, but it's not shining where we're heading to first here in Kitzbuhel in Austria. Before we come on to the matches you want to talk about, Sean, the conditions have been pretty horrid there, haven't they? Give us a little rundown of what the players have met in the last couple of days.
Well, they've been okay up until today. It's today, and then for the next 7 days that it's meant to be just solid rain, basically, which is what it is at the minute. They played 3 games, I think, Huesler and Altmaier, and it was called off. I put the video on Bet Rivers' website just to see the live stream, and it's just... I like the way that they've still got music pumping out really loud all around the centre court. There's not a single person in there, and the covers are on, but there's still dance music pumping out to literally nobody, because if the forecast is correct, they're not going to see much play there for the rest of the tournament. I think it's one good day. I think tomorrow is meant to be okay. But the rest of it is just, if the weather forecast is correct, it's a complete washout.
One thing we've gone to, the dance music. I mentioned this before to you on a podcast. We've been to a lot of tennis this year. It's a new thing now, pumping out dance music. The trouble is the average age of the person there's 65. They're all women.
Depends on the tournament.
Yeah, I know.
UMAG, they're a bit younger, I think. At UMAG, I could see it at UMAG. It's a bit of a party tournament, but yeah, Kitzbuhel and
Queen's Club. Queen's Club had like rave music pumping out. I
didn't even notice.
Well, you was too busy watching the tennis, but I was listening to the rave music because all my bets were losing at the time. But there was a row of people, and I was the youngest person in that row of people by 25 years.
Eastbourne and Queens is quite sort of... Well, Queens is a bit different because of where it is in sort of central, sort of southwest London. But Eastbourne in particular, that's a very sort of... how can I put this kindly? There's an more elderly audience there, isn't there?
I think it must be something in their desire to get more fans in and think they're going to pump the music out loud. But anyway, I like change. But in certain tournaments, yes. But Eastbourne, I think you want a bit of more of the Seekers or the Everly Brothers. That'll get you more. That'll get you more audience participation.
In Germany, all they seem to play is kind of old British stuff, isn't it? From like the 60s and 70s and 80s and stuff. That seems to be in vogue there for whatever
They
reason.
did play the Jam, though. They did play a bit of the Jam. They played a bit of Paul
still
Weller.
80s, isn't it?
Oh,
still,
but that's classic. That gets my
it
vote
may
all
be,
day
but
long.
it's still like 40 years old.
I know, but that gets my vote. Anyone who plays a bit of Paul Weller, I mean. Okay,
Fair
let's
enough.
have a look at the matches. We've got the 3 matches we're going to talk about. Kitzbuhel. We can talk about the weather conditions. We can talk about music and our pets and stuff like that. But this is a tennis podcast. we have to get to the tennis and get to the picks. The first match we're going to talk about is quite an interesting one. I think so. Anyway, it's Sebastian Ofner, sort of the Austrian lad playing in his home tournament. He's minus 137 against Alex Molcan, who's plus 110. We were with Alex Molcan in his first round match, and he got us the money. Sebastian Ofner here is the number 4 seed. He's higher in world rankings. He's had a pretty good season on clay. They met twice on the head-to-head. Ofner's won them both. Fairly easy. A couple of losses. Well, the first set in 2021 in a tie break, but they were a long time ago in challenger events and in futures back in 2016. So they're really irrelevant now for what we're talking about here. Before you give us your angle bet, I just want to ask you one question. The players, especially in Austrian players like that, is that a pressure to them, or do they go there on the? Is it a good thing or a bad thing to be a home-based player? A lot of bettors will bet the home-based player, thinking they've got the crowd behind them. We've been to many of these tournaments; they don't have much of a crowd. Or is it the pressure of performing in your home? How do you sort of look at home-based players in your handicapping? And the reason I say that is because obviously last week in Hamburg, Hamburg native Alexander Zverev won the tournament.
Well, he did, but that was the first time he's won it, wasn't it?
Yeah, but he won it.
I know, but how many times has he played it? Like
I know,
5, 6?
I know, but just because we always say, oh, he's the home lad, he might have the support.
It depends. It really depends on the player. Let's take Stan Wawrinka, for example. He's never done particularly well. Very rarely has he done very well in Switzerland. I went against him last week with Munar, and he had another shocking performance. He's never done well in Gestard. Depends on the player. Some players really enjoy it. Some players really fear it. As far as Ofner's concerned, I've not seen too much of him. Well, he won the Salzburg Challenger, but is that pressure? I wouldn't have thought so. Not too many people there. It's a level that he's comfortable with. Not massive crowds by any means. As far as this match is concerned, I think the slower conditions might well favour Alex Molcan. Actually, that attritional style of play that he does have. Let's have a look at Ofner's record. I had a quick look at it against left-handers. He's won 63% of his career matches on clay against lefties, but he's only played 2 that were ranked in the top 100. So limited data there. As far as the stats on clay at main level are concerned, they're pretty level. Ofner 99, service points 1, return points 1. Molcan also 99. So but I think they're both be motivated here. Molcan because it's the last clay tournament of the year, and Ofner because it's at home. So I quite like Molcan or over 2.5 sets here, 2.35 for Bet Rivers.
There is a whole host of markets available in this match. 28 different markets available. Sean just mentioned it there with the set handicap, the game handicap. Total games, you can move the line and create your own different market. The main markets, though, are the win market on the money line, minus 137 off the plus 110 Molcan. The spread is minus 1.5 off the minus 112, giving up the start. And Molcan receiving the start is minus 113. The total here is 22.5 with under the favourite at minus 127. And remember, this is an early start. If they do play with the weather, probably about 5 a.m. Eastern time. It's going to get up nice and early. Make sure you get the bet on now in time. And if you do get up nice and early and want to watch the game, and you don't want to click through the television channels, you can watch it on the Bet Rivers website. Just place a bet and you'll be able to live stream this match from Kitzbuhel. You probably won't see much. You'll probably see the weather. You might be watching the weather channel rather than the
I don't know when this is going to be on. Yeah, this could be a while.
It could. You could be in for a long wait. You might get home from work and it might still be on.
Yeah,
let's move on. Yeah, whenever it might be on. But I think on 5 o'clock tomorrow morning, it may be a lot of rain. The next match we're going to talk about is Thomas Martin Echeverry against Guido Andreozzi. Is it Andreozzi? Andreozzi,
I think.
Andreozzi. Oh, you so much. You have to order the Italian when we go out next time, because I don't know that. Anyway, Thomas Martin Echeverry is a player that had a very, very good French Open. But since then, he hasn't really lived up to any expectation. His form has dropped a little bit. Got beaten the first round in Hamburg, got beaten the first round in Warstad, got beaten the second round at Wimbledon, and he got beaten the first round as well at Eastbourne, a match that I watched him play against JJ Wolf, where he was like Bambi on ice on that grass court. Absolutely diabolical he was. And Wolf got the better of him there. I don't really know much about Andreozzi, but what I do know, he is ranked 240 in the world. Sean knows a lot about him. He's going to tell us all about, not like, I'll put the pressure on you, Sean, there, but you're going to tell us a little bit about it. But one thing I do know is that when we've done this video here, we have Echeverry at minus 455 on the graphic. Andreozzi is plus 340. Well, the money has come for Echeverry, the number one seed this week. He's now down to minus $5. And Andreozzi is now a price of 375. So the money is coming for the Argentinian. Given his form, though, I wouldn't want to be betting him at minus $5, that's for sure.
No, I quite like Andreozzi here. As you said, Echeverry's form has been poor recently. His last month at main level, I know he's played some on grass, but 1-3 win-loss and a service points won, return points won, total of 95. Compare that to what he was earlier in the season, or his season as a whole on clay at main level. 17 wins, 11 losses, and a 105 service points won, return points won, total. So he's 10 points down at the minute on the level he was playing at earlier in the season, maybe more like 11, 12 points because he's lost those last couple of matches. I think he was around about 107 at one point. So his level is dropping. This could be the case. It could be a number of reasons for this. Obviously, he made the quarterfinals of the French. Sometimes when you break through like that, there's a sort of letdown afterwards. It could be physical. He's played a lot of matches. It could just be a sudden realization that he's in the top sort of 20, 30, whatever he is, and the pressure's on him now. It could be that. But whatever it is, he's struggling at the minute. And Andreozzi's coming here in great form. Made the final of the Cali Challenger, quarterfinals in Trieste. He's won 3 good matches to make the last 16 here. And his stats, I know they're from a very, very small sample size, but his whole break total is 120. And his service points won, return points won total is 118 in these 3 matches that he's played. I know it's a very small sample size. I know it's only 3 matches. But against decent opposition as well. It wasn't against really low-ranked or unranked opposition. And he's held serve 88% of the time. Plus, he's had, obviously, 3 matches here. Echeverry hasn't had any. He's coming from sea level in Hamburg to this altitude in Kitzbuhel. So Andreozzi will obviously be the one that's more attuned to the match conditions. Allied to that, if you're a fan of trends, which I am, or I certainly can be, number one seeds have got a shocking record in Kitzbuhel. They've lost in their opening match 4 times in the last 6 editions. And on one other occasion, the top seed withdrew. So the top seed has fallen early, 5 of the last 6 editions of Kitzbuhel. Yes, it's just a trend, but it's an interesting trend. And now we've got a number one seed who's playing here that is in poor form. And Andreozzi will be highly motivated and is playing well. So I'm not sure what this move is all about for Echeverry, to be honest. It doesn't make any sense for me. I'm happy to take Andreozzi at that price for sure.
I think it's probably to do with the fact that he's the number one seed. As you say, not many people would know the record of the number one seed. And also they just look at it and think we can parlay him up. Put him in at $5. It's free money. We put him in with all the other short price fighters.
He's not free money at the minute, is he?
No.
Echeverry, definitely not.
I think the people obviously only think of his name and think of the form he showed at the French Open. I think there's a really good important factor what you said there, that he had his breakthrough at the French Open, and that was his season. It's a big prize money, big lots of money, and this is his last clay court of the year. So he's not going to do much of the hard court. He may think this is my season over now. So yeah, I can understand the fade. We can't understand the move for Thomas Echeverry down to minus $5 with BetRivers currently. Andreozzi definitely is the pick here for us in all kinds of different markets. If you want to play on the spread, it's 4.5. Andreozzi plus 4.5, minus 103. Echeverry now minus 4.5, minus 125. And the total is 20.5, which again, I think could be quite favourable to bet the over, which is minus 117. The final match we're going to speak about here in Kitzbuhel. Now, this one here, I'm scratching my head a little bit about the odds here. I actually scratched my head there when I said I'm scratching my head a little bit. I emphasised that I was scratching my head. But I'm quite surprised by the prices. I don't know which way you're going to go because we don't really share our opinions. You just come with the matches you want to talk about and then you give your point of view. But Sebastian Baez is minus 165 here against Carballes Baena, who's plus 132. Now, they've met once before in 2022. So last year, Carballes Baena won a very close match, 7-6, 7-6 on clay. Their clay records this year are pretty identical. Carballes Baena is 15-12. Sebastian Baez is 20-14. on the win-loss. And Carballes Baena, the Spaniard, is actually slightly higher in the world rankings. But yet, Sebastian Baez is a relatively heavy favourite here at -165 with the Spaniard at +132. I think this is a lot closer than the betting suggests. The spread here is -2.5. You can bet the Spaniard +2.5 at -118. And the total is 22.5 with over -105. And when you consider the last time they met was 7-6, 7-6, I would guess the over 22.5 would be a lot more popular than the under 22.5. You agree with me or totally disagree, Sean?
I'm just slightly confused because I'm looking at my sheet here. I can't find a recent meeting or any meeting between these two.
They played in the Bundesliga in 2022.
Oh, the Bundesliga.
Bundesliga.
Right, okay.
And it was a 7-6, 7-6 win for Carballes Baena.
That'll be why it's that the Bundesliga, for people that don't sort of follow tennis regularly, is like a German clubs tournament that's played on clay. That's why I haven't got any detail of it, because it's anything but a main level event. You know, it's a very sort of niche tournament. I'm surprised I'm surprised you found the result for that, to be honest. That's very niche.
I got my contacts when I come back from Hamburg. I met someone on the Reaper Barn.
That guy in the mobility scooter?
Yeah, that guy in the wheelchair on the electric scooter. He said to me, if you ever want any stats on the Bundesliga, I'm your man. Give me another €2 and I'll give you the stats. You never reveal your sources, Sean. You never reveal your sources.
No, okay,
research, mate.
Okay, I'm just slightly kind of taken aback because I hadn't considered that when looking at this match, mainly because I didn't know about it. Because, as I say, Bundesliga is they play a lot of matches in Bundesliga. But anyway, the interesting thing about this one is, I mean, both men have a history of going well at altitude. Baez has won Cordoba. He's made the final 4 times in Santiago, sometimes Challenger, sometimes the main ATP event. Carballes Baena won Quito, which is no longer play, which was at massively high altitude. And he also won Marrakesh, where I was earlier in this season, also in damp conditions. Of course, Marrakesh, why wouldn't it be damp conditions? So they've both got good histories of going well at altitude. Baez hasn't had the best of seasons, but his stats are still better than those of Carballes Baena this season at main level on clay. Baez, his service points, one return points, one total is 104, and Carballes Baena is 100. I think that's where the price is coming from. But I am slightly tempted by Carballes Baena. I think he's in better form right now, right at this exact moment. Played well in round 1, did Carballes Baena. Baez might have been slightly flattered by his win over Medjedovic, because Medjedovic was injured. Took a medical timeout after about two or three games of that one, Medjedovic. So that result might have flattered Baez a little bit. I am tempted by Carballes Baena. My lean would be Carballes Baena, but looking at the stats, I don't think the stats are putting me off the fact that he is 4 points behind on the service points, one return points, one totals this season on clay.
No, I just be looking at it from a purely mathematical base and think that this should be a lot closer than +132. I'd probably make Carballes Baena about a +110 chance.
Has the line moved on this? Because I thought it was closer than that initially.
No, the money actually is coming for the favourite, for Sebastian Baez.
Is it?
Yeah, it's coming for it. You know,
the other thing to think about on these matches, sorry mate, these Kitzbuhel ones, is you might have a situation where they're played over a number of days. They might get 2 or 3 games and they have to go off and then come back and have another 2 or 3 games, and then this could carry on all week. So I wouldn't be backing many favourites, because this is a level of this weather. You know, if you're consistently going on and having to wait for 3 hours off, on, off, there's no rhythm to the game, is there? So I definitely, one thing, I mean, I wouldn't be backing favourites in Kitzbuhel anyway. I mentioned at the start of the week, there's I think 42% of the underdogs have won here in the last 10 editions. And I'm even less likely to back underdogs now, given the weather, than normal.
That's even more the case to oppose Echeverry. And I think the higher price favourites, like the $4.50s and the $5, they're -$5. They're the ones who are more vulnerable, I think. So I can't understand why anybody would be taking the heavy minus money on these favourites. But let's wait and see. I think the one thing you got to do at Kitzbuhel this week is not only check the BetRivers website, but you got to check the weather forecast, because that's going to be really, really important here. The weather forecast has been proved wrong. We were sitting there this time last week thinking, how on earth would they get through the tournament in Hamburg? And they did. They did it very easy with a WTA event as well. So
well, the weather forecast was ahead of itself, wasn't it? That really bad weather is coming sort of nowish rather than last week. But yeah, it can make you look very silly, the weather forecast. They often get it very wrong.
It does indeed. A tournament where there is a WTA event as well is in Washington, in the capital of the United States of America. Washington, DC is our next stop. And there's no problem with the weather here, Sean. I don't know if you watched we might have some thunderstorms, but the last 2 days have been absolutely boiling. Me players
it's
collapsing.
more the heat, isn't it?
Yeah. So you might give us an update on the weather here. So you stopped me there. So explain to me what. No, that's fine. You explained to me why I was talking nonsense.
No, you weren't talking nonsense. I was just saying you said there's no problem with the weather. What? And there isn't really.
No, in terms of the heat. Yeah, I understand what you're saying now. I thought you were going to say you've said there's going to be some thunderstorms.
No.
No, we have no problems with delays, but we've got problems in the excessive heat. So as we saw yesterday, didn't we?
Yeah, anybody that watched Yibing Wu yesterday against Watanuki would have been quite shocked, I think, or certainly slightly concerned, at least. For those that didn't watch it, Yibing Wu went to the changeover. I think he was 4-1 up at the time. Went to the changeover and just completely collapsed onto his chair and could obviously take no further part in the match. Just heat exhaustion. He has got a little bit of a history of that. Yibing Wu. I think he's got some sort of heart issue, which in extreme heat and humidity, as it has been recently in Washington DC, that can manifest itself in him sort of fainting, and that's what happened basically. But it is brutal in DC. Sort of often this time of year, very hot, and it's the humidity as well. Andy Murray was talking about how he'd prepared for this event. I thought was quite interesting. He said he's been doing sessions on the bike indoors with the heating turned up to about 30 odd degrees, and I think he said he was doing it next to a sauna or a steam room so that he could replicate the kind of humidity that you get there. So that's what he's been doing to prepare for this. Well, I doubt a lot of these players have taken it that far. But Andy Murray is very fastidious in his preparations and stuff. So if he's doing miles and miles and miles on a static bike, basically just outside a sauna or a steam room, that sort of shows you what the conditions can be like in DC. That there are thunderstorms around, which also indicates high humidity. Yeah, it's very hot, and it's Taylor Fritz had a massive problem last year here. He had to retire. He had sort of heart palpitations and stuff as well. So it can be a problem.
And that player you mentioned there, Watanuki, is in action tomorrow against a man who is really, really struggling with form at the moment, Felix Auger-Aliassime. I mean, the Canadian burst onto the scene, and we were talking, I think, with James Blake this year, thinking, he was in that category of Sinners, Alcarazes at the time, on who was going to be the next player to break through and win a major. But his form is completely and utterly gone this year. I mean, if you look at his record, he's only won 2 of his last 9 matches, and he's lost against some opponents that you just would never expect him to lose to. Fognini, obviously, in the French Open, which if Fognini is capable of those wins, I think we were on that as well. Artur Fils in Lyon, Popperin in Rome, that was a big shock. Lajovic in Madrid, Serendulu in Miami, Mo at Wimbledon. I mean, Felix Auger-Aliassime was considered a constant in the top 10 in the world, and perhaps maybe can break into the top 5, but it isn't working out for him, and he's probably a vulnerable favourite here against Watanuki. Felix Auger-Aliassime is minus 335, as I said. Watanuki is plus 225. If you want to go to the spread, it's 3.5. Watanuki plus 3.5 is minus 105. Felix minus 3.5 is minus 122, and the total is 22.5. I quite like the total at 22.5 on the over at even money, because Felix Auger-Aliassime does get involved in some long matches, a lot of tie breaks in his matches. Where's your angle of attack here?
Similar angle of attack, yeah. I mean, Felix's problems are mainly because of injuries he's had. The knee problem been the most recent one. He also had other injury issues earlier this season, so you can sort of see why he's been struggling a little bit, because he just hasn't been able to get a full block of sort of training and matches in. It's been very stop-start this season. He's just not been able to get a rhythm or anything. So you can sort of see why it's happened for him. He's just had a bad year with injuries. It should iron itself out soon enough, but a lot of players go through these sort of spells. If you look at the stats of these two, Watanuki in particular has been extremely serve dominated. I don't think the layers have really caught up with this at the minute. I know he's been playing on grass, but a lot of the grass tournaments aren't that quick these days. That includes Wimbledon qualies. They're not light. The only one that's really quick, I would say, is Stuttgart. But Watanuki has gone over 10.5 games in the opening set 7 times in his last 9 completed matches. And he's played 11 tie-break sets in those 9 matches. And this is due to the fact that his serve is good, decent, very decent. But he's not been breaking too much. Let me just find the stats. They both of these have held serve 86% of the time this season, but they've only broken serve 13% and 15% of the time, respectively. So a lot of holds, nowhere near enough breaks of serve. Felix, as you said, he's played a tie-break in 9 of his last 15 matches, which is 60% of the time. He's gone over 10.5 games in his opening set 7 times in his last 13 matches, which is 54% of the time. Yet we're getting odds of, I took 3.4 earlier on. I think it's come down now. Over 10.5 games in set 1. I think it's, last time I looked, it was 3.05 at Bet Rivers. Is that still the case?
I'll have a look at it, and while we're going, I'm going to try and look now. Total games in the first set. I'm trying to find it now.
Should
set 1 totals over 10.5 plus 205.
Yeah, plus 205. So still happy with that, because
that sounds a very, very big price, isn't it? Plus 205.
Yeah, well, we'll talk about something similar with Isner in a bit and compare the prices that you're going to get with Isner compared to this. Obviously, Isner, everybody knows about him, but Watanuki plays an awful lot of opening set tiebreaks and a lot of tiebreaks generally. He was poor, actually, in those 5. I watched those 5 games, Watanuki against Wu. He was really poor. Watanuki's going to need a lot better than that against Felix, but Felix is very, very rusty. As we said, he's hardly played consecutive matches this season, really. Certainly in the last couple of months, just lacking matches, lacking game time. It showed at Wimbledon against Michael Moe, didn't it? I just feel like this is overs, tie breaks, that sort of thing.
Totally agree on that. Head to the Bet Rivers website. Lots of different markets on that match. Plus 205 over 10.5. It's minus 130 over 9.5 as well, if you want to take that as well. And that probably that looks, it covers your 6-4 rather than going into the 5. Sometimes I look the one lower and take a little bit of minus money, because I think that sometimes we get to 4-4, there's a break, and someone wins to set 6-4. As many happens on me on times at 10.5, so it frustrates me indeed. Next match, same tournament, Washington, where it's fast conditions. Gael Monfils is plus 160 against Alexander Bublik, who is minus $2. These two have met twice before, once in the Australian Open in 2022. Monfils won easy, 6-1, 6-love, 6-4. In the French Open, Bublik won the opening match they played in the head-to-head, 6-4, 7-5, 3-6, 6-3. So, one win apiece. Bublik has had a very, very good season. Got beat by Rublev at Wimbledon. That's his last match. Monfils had a good win here in the first round. Can he continue that run against Bublik, who hasn't had a bit of a month off now? So he might be a little bit rusty. Might need a couple of games under his belt to get that Bublik going. And we really never know with Bublik what Bublik's going to turn up. Monfils here, though, can he be trusted at plus 160 to cause a shock?
Yeah, I've taken Monfils here. We were unlucky with him last week in Atlanta, weren't we, when we had him to beat Kokkinakis, and he was 4-love up in the final set tiebreak, ended up losing. This is just about if you trust Monfils' fitness. If you do, as I'm prepared to take a chance on at these prices, if you do trust his fitness, then this is an excellent price, because for me, it's a great matchup. Yes, he lost in the French Open to Bublik, but there were circumstances there to be taken into account, namely, it was during COVID. It was the COVID year, so it was played behind closed doors. And the one thing Gael Monfils does not want to be doing is playing with nobody watching. It's not for him. He's the showman. He likes to entertain. Sometimes he entertains at the expense of winning matches that he should win by being silly and just playing sort of ridiculous shots just to entertain the crowd. That's the way he is. That's the way he's always been. That's the way he always will be. But playing against in an empty stadium with no fans, it's no surprise that he lost that match against Bublik. I think the truer reflection of this matchup is that Australian Open match that you mentioned, when Monfils won easily 6-1, 6-love, 6-4. And it does look a good matchup for Monfils. He returns exceptionally well, which can nullify, obviously, the main strength of Bublik, which is his serve. He's extremely quick still around the court, Monfils, so he's able to get to the drop shots that Bublik regularly plays. This kind of cat and mouse style that Bublik plays sometimes, no problem for Gael Monfils. He's the master at that. So as far as the matchup is concerned, I think it's a really good one for Gael Monfils. The only question is he fit? I mean, I'm taking a chance on him being fit. He played that UTS exhibition in Los Angeles. Then he went to Atlanta and played a match there. Now he's come to Washington, DC and won his first round match here. So I'm happy to take a chance on that. Bublik, as you said, could well be rusty. He's not played since Wimbledon. Doesn't have a great record here anyway. 1 win and 2 losses. Bublik, and the grass season is Bublik, isn't it? Does he still have that motivation coming to somewhere boiling hot like Washington DC, and sort of picking up the rackets again and going again? Well, we'll see. I think Monfils is usually very highly motivated to play here. He won this tournament. He likes coming back here. He likes the crowd. He likes showing off to the crowd. I'm happy to take Monfils at this price. I took him at 2 points.
He's also there with his family as well. His wife's playing. She won a big win last night against Azarenka, and they got the baby with them as well. So he's going to be very settled.
But I think it's if you can trust Monfils' fitness. I mean, let's take the price of that Australian Open match, for example. Monfils was 1-3, minus 333. And that was only a year and a half ago. He was a 1-3 favourite. Now he's 2.6 underdog. It's just about fitness, whether you still think that Monfils can achieve that same level of fitness as he could before. That's it.
If you do follow our picks and you are making them profit, please share some of your winners with us. Show us your slips. We'd like to have a look at your picks. We'd like don't have to tell us how much you had on.
Ones.
Not the losing ones. Well, you share them with Sean Calvert at Sean. No, you can share them with Sean. The winning ones, you let me know, Nigel Seeley, or because we win. But if you are having any success on it, we'd like to see how you're doing, and we'd like to follow your journey with us as well. So we'd like to see how you're doing. We'd like to win together. That's what we like to do here at Because We Win. We bet together and we win together. So if there's anything that you've had in any success, please share it with us. And obviously, we've got some tournament outright picks as well. If some of them go deep and win the tournament, let us know that you're cheering them on as well. The final match, the final tournament as well, is we're going to Los Cabos over in Mexico. We didn't speak about this at all last time in the last podcast because we didn't have any odds. There was no odds on the outright market. There was no odds on the match bets. We've seen a couple of matches now, a couple of days worth of matches. We give us a little insight to conditions before we break it down. What probably is the most intriguing match of the day tomorrow.
Yeah, they play here on a Solflex outdoor hard court, which is kind of slow to medium at best. It certainly isn't quick conditions. I'll give you a quote from Cam Norrie here, who's won here a couple of times. He's certainly gone well here a few times. He said, "I love the conditions here. The courts are pretty slow and I can use my legs to get to the ball and it's quite bouncy, so I can use my forehand as well." So slow conditions, slow, bouncy. Cam Norrie likes it. Averages 79% holds and 72.4% first serve points won. So at best, it's medium to slow, I would say. They tend to play later in the day to avoid the high heat and humidity in Los Cabos. So it's always been a very difficult tournament for me to watch because most of the matches start about 4:00 in the morning where I am. So it's a tough watch, but it's going to be 35 degrees all week and sunny there. As I say, quite can be quite humid as well. So hot, but slow conditions. No problem at time if you're stateside. This match, we're going to talk about Stefanos Tsitsipas against John Isner, scheduled for 9 p.m. Eastern time. So a really nice time for you over in America. Have your dinner, sit back and watch some tennis before you go to bed. The head-to-head is overwhelmingly in favour of Stefanos Tsitsipas, 5-2 on the head-to-head. The money, again, has come for Tsitsipas. Despite him losing in the first round at Wimbledon against Eubanks, he's got to sort of get some form going before he reaches into round of 16, not first round, before he gets going into the American hardcourt campaign. And John Isner comes here on the back of a first-round defeat in Atlanta, but prior to that, he made the semi-finals at Newport, where he was beaten by the sensation there, Mickelson. He had a good win in the first round against the fantastically named Rinky Hijikata. And this is a difficult one for Stefanos Tsitsipas. I think John Isner will relish the opportunity to take him on. But has he got anything left in the tank, Sean? That is the big question you've got to answer for me. Yeah, I'm not sure is the answer to that. I think he's got enough for a while. Whether he's got enough, if this went to sort of a long 2 or sort of 3 sets, I would question. I think he said his quote after the Hijikata match, I think he said something along the lines of, "I'm pretty glad this didn't go to 3 sets." I think that was the gist of what he was trying to say. I think a lot of this is about Tsitsipas. He's never played here before. How motivated is he? I mean, on a scale of 1 to 10, how motivated would you say he's been in the last 3 or 4 months? What, 5, 4?
Probably less. I was going to 3, 4, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, it's up to him. Is he interested? As you say, he's beaten this in the last 5 times in a row. Set 1 tiebreak has been played in 4 of their 5 hard court meetings. And consequently, the price on that particular outcome is, I think it's odds on over 10.5 games. Just a touch of odds on it was. I think it's 1.96 minus sort of 104-ish. Over 10.5 games.
Minus 106 over 10.5, and a tiebreak is plus 130 in set 1.
So a tiebreak in this is plus 130. Over 10.5 games, a shade of odds on. Whereas in the Felix game, we were getting sort of 2-1 plus, plus 305. It's no value at all, is it? It's obviously highly likely if you look at the stats. Isner on outdoor hard in his last 10 matches at main level, not winning many, 3-7 win-loss, but he's playing a huge 0.46 tie, almost half a tie break per set. So 1 tie break every 2 sets, roughly, is what he's playing. Hence the odds. Holding serve 92% of the time. Against Tsitsipas on hard courts, he holds serve 92% of the time. But Tsitsipas has held serve 98.4% of the time against Isner on a hard court. So you can see why the prices are as they are, because this has basically just been the serve dominated. I just think the slightly slower conditions in Los Cabos and the high heat and humidity at 38 years of age, I think it'll catch up with Isner at some point if Tsitsipas fancies it, which I couldn't say that he will. 250 just after Wimbledon, he's had a poor spell of it. If we look at Tsitsipas's stats actually this season at main level away from clay, let's take clay out of the equation. He's just 15-8 win-loss. And his service points won, return points won total is 102, which is not befitting of a guy with sort of ideals of being in the top 3, 4, 5 in the world. He's won exactly the same number of second serve points as John Isner, 57%, and he's only won 32% of return points. All this points to a set 1 tiebreak, but it's absolutely no value at all. I think I'm slightly tempted here with the under 21.5 games. Under 24.5. Under 24.5. Sorry, yeah, 1.95. I think if it could also be one for in play. If you can get odds which aren't available yet on set 2 unders, it could well be a tiebreak in the first set. But I think Isner's legs will go at some point. I just don't think that serve is potent enough for long enough now to be backing him over 24.5 games. I think that's my lean here. Either set 2 unders or under 24.5 games.
Love the swim against the tide. That's what we got to do in betting, swim against the tide. Remember, there's 4 ways to follow us here on Betting Weekly Game Bet Match. Download the podcast, Betting Weekly Game Bet Match, on your preferred podcast provider. Subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Because We Win, at the Bet Rivers Studios, the news chat channel there. And also give us a follow on our Instagram and Twitter page, which is also at Because We Win. Some great picks from Sean there. The best one for me, Watanuki v Felix Auger-Aliassime over 20.5. It's over 10.5 games at plus 205. And a lean for me for Carballes Baena to beat Sebastian Baez. That's it. We'll be back tomorrow to look at more matches on the men's tennis tour. Enjoy your day. Cash some tickets and take care.